80 years, and I was taught that respect that water and that ancient, our spiritual being, the land and what it means to us. And I know that I've always done that, and today I stand here amongst my people and all you ladies and gentlemen, that we want to do something for the homelessness. I was homeless 60 years ago when I was on the GABA. GABA means alcohol. But you know, we need a lot to be done, so the Lord Mayor's got to do. So, yes, it's been a long haul, and things are starting to happen now. And I know that you all here are standing with us. I've done the welcome here before for homeless people. That was 7, 8 years ago, I think it was, with the Anglican Church. And I'm here again years later. So something gonna happen now for my poor people out there, whether they're Noongar, Whitefella, Aboriginal people. Something is definitely going to be done. They cry on my shoulder, and I'm very sad. And down there, Daydorn, Jess, and Betsy Buchanan and all them, I've been there for meetings, and they do good work, trying to end this homelessness and get them into housing and home evictions. So right now I'll hand it over to Mingley. And Tim, anytime I see Tim on TV, I'm a one-eyed Docker supporter. Thank you.
I'm no longer on TV.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to say also welcome to this ceremony this afternoon, this talk this afternoon. Wishing all the people good luck, and hope that they seem to all have the same aims, rather, two things and more than two. But of course, homelessness is something that it shouldn't happen here. We're supposed to be a fairly rich state, so it shouldn't happen. It's a very sad thing. I, as a woman, I feel very sad about women being that way. It's easier for men to do, and it's not easier for them to suffer this, but it's easier for them to look after personal care. And for me, being a woman is the important thing. And so it's been, what's happened to it now? It's going to fall on me. I better sit down. I'll sit down and talk because I can't stand up very long. And I've got to say the welcome bit first too. Oh, goodness. Give me the thing and take that out of my face. Take that away. Take it away. No. So I'd just like to say I'm from the southeast of the state originally. My children are born here, but I've lived here for 50 years. I did live in Sydney for 10, so I'm nearly as old as him, and been working together since about 1972 in social issues and our interest, social issues, justice. And of course, you know, homelessness, having a shelter is one of the most important things for anybody, because you can't do anything without proper shelter. Everyone needs shelter, everyone's entitled to it, it's a human right. We learned that, I did learn that. I learned something at college one time, but I didn't stay there. I couldn't do the work that I trained for because there was too much to do in the community. And now there still is, and it's really sad. So it's time a lot of things stopped. It's time that people got housing, and with housing, their children and grandchildren will have education. I have a daughter who's got her PhD. I have a grandson I reared, he's a geologist, he's a scientist. I've had others who are office workers, and you have to do it that way. We need to be working people, and our people can contribute. I mean, you know, Aboriginal people have such a history and such a knowledge. I lived all over the state and lived eastern states and travelled to London, Asia, Canada and America and New Zealand. So being around looking at how other people function. New Zealand has very good housing issues, and so that's very good for that. We don't have a treaty, we never had one yet, we would like one. But in saying that, I'd just like to say, oh, I'm getting all puffed out too. I have a problem with my air supply. And so Kaya, Wandu, Derbyl Yarrigan, that's the big river here. We are right near the Sacred River where we grew up. I grew up in the bush, so I knew about the the woggle. Everywhere, all over Australia, we all know about woggle. Sometimes it's a frog or sometimes it's a fish that's a dreaming, but the biggest creator is the woggle. And for me, it's the she, you see. So the men all say he, but the women say she. So, because it has both identities. And there's so much for me to even learn. There's much more for you to learn, non-Aboriginal people particularly, to learn about our history and our culture and be proud of our people. Look how we can dance. Look how we can do art. And I guess Ben and I do talking. We can't do those sorts of things, but there's a tremendous thing, a tremendous community we would be, and we could be, and hopefully we will be, and hopefully that whoever's going to be the new Lord Mayor will be able to achieve some of those things that we and then also what non-Aboriginal people want. The businesses are going off, you know, it's sad. It's not good to see what's happening because of this virus business. So let's, you know, start working soon together. Thank you.
Alliance to End Homelessness are pleased that all 7 of our City of Perth Lord Mayoral candidates have agreed to be here today to discuss what can only be described as the major discussion point and issue in their respective campaigns. For those who watched Flashpoint last night on the 7 network at 7:30, I thought you all conducted yourself extremely well in that forum, and homelessness certainly came to the forefront out of the whole subject matter that was discussed. So hats off to all of you. My name is Tim Gossage, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be your facilitator of today's forum, an unbiased facilitator, I may add. Before we run through the program and the procedures of today's discussion, we'll hear from 3 important guest speakers who can talk with knowledge about homelessness and its impact. Now, homelessness is a subject, of course, that requires urgent action in our city. Not band-aid measures, of course. Hopefully, by the conclusion of today's forum, our candidates in particular, and those in the room that are across this will be better positioned and informed and are willing to get their hands dirty to make life better for those in need of a permanent and respectful place to live. I'll run through the rules and protocols for our guest speakers shortly, both here, of course, and for those watching on Zoom. But to start things off, would you please make welcome the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor, Miss Sandy Verschoor of Adelaide.
Hello everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear or see me. See how we go there. See if that works. Is that working? A bit better? Hello everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me. Yes?
We can.
Great. So, Mani Napudni, Nadla Tampandi, Nadla Ghana, Yatanga Takandi. I'm here speaking from Adelaide, Tanzania, which is home of the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. It's afternoon over here. I believe it's still morning over there. I am Sandy Verschoor. I'm the Lord Mayor of the City of Adelaide and the current chair of the Capital City Council of Lord Mayors. I can't see all the candidates, but I believe you are all doing well in terms of the race. Only two years ago, I was in your shoes when I ran for the Lord Mayor of Adelaide. And reducing homelessness in my city was and continues to be one of the key issues that I am most passionate about. As we all know, homelessness is not a new issue. It has gained much more attention just recently, both locally, nationally and internationally, especially during the time of COVID and what's happening around the world. For cities, reducing the number of people homeless has become one of the key goals in our pursuit for strong, inclusive and equitable communities. And there are so many reasons why a person may become homeless, and it's shocking to realise just how quickly that can occur. Many people who are currently or are facing potential homelessness are just like you. They belong to families, many have worked in good jobs, they've had plans for their future, they've had hopes and ambitions, and somewhere along the line, events in their lives have disrupted them. Homeless, particularly those living rough, are highly vulnerable and at-risk members of our society. It's estimated that hundreds of rough sleepers die every year from the impacts of homelessness. And research shows that people who have experienced long-term rough sleeping have an average life expectancy of just 47 years compared with 77 among the rest of we Australians. Reducing the number of people experiencing homelessness makes social, cultural and economic sense, but more importantly, it is the right thing to do. I agree completely with Anghie. It just shouldn't happen here. We are the lucky country and everyone in our community should have access to a safe place to live. The City of Adelaide has been actively involved in finding solutions to what is the complex issue of homelessness, and we're absolutely committed to finding solutions that support the most vulnerable members of our community and treat them with respect and dignity. City of Adelaide is proud to be a founding member or a founding partner with the Don Dunstan Foundation, and the Don Dunstan Foundation runs the Adelaide Zero project, which is dedicated to working towards ending street homelessness in Adelaide. The Adelaide Zero project has created new integrative ways of working between the City of Adelaide, the social services within the city, the state government authorities such as the South Australian Police and the South Australian Housing Authority. And during the pandemic, the Adelaide Zero project worked in partnership with our state government to provide emergency housing for people who were sleeping rough to stop the spread of COVID-19. This saw a record number of people housed, and that enabled us to offer assistance to help the streets for good. Nearly 47% of all people sleeping rough in Australia are in the capital city. And there are a number of factors contributing to that unprecedented level of homelessness in the capital cities, which is things like rental costs, support failing to meet the cost of rent, and invest in social housing just not keeping up with the population growth and the needs. I work very closely with the other capital city Lord Mayors to address homelessness and housing across Australia. And together, as representatives of each Australian capital city, we're calling on the federal government to invest $200 million over 4 years for the development of a capital city housing first fund, up to 2,000 tailored housing units for people sleeping rough or at risk of primary homelessness across our cities. We are also the federal government to act decisively and develop a cohesive national approach to housing that creates the condition for meaningful social outcomes, and to partner with state, territory and locals to identify and invest in the development of inner city sites to ensure that there is appropriate social and affordable housing and emergency accommodation in our capital cities. Homelessness is not an unsolvable problem. We have an opportunity now, more than ever, to work together to provide safe, supportive and stable housing for everyone in our communities. As the future Lord Mayor of Perth, you will be in a position to work with us at the CCCLM and within your own reduce homelessness and provide meaningful support to those who need it most. I wish you absolute luck in your race, and I hope to meet one of you in person very soon. Thank you.
The Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of the City of Adelaide, Miss Sandy Verschoor. Thank you very much for your time and in particular your patience waiting for us over there on a very busy schedule. Before we hear from our 7 candidates, ladies and gentlemen, on the subject of homelessness in our City of Perth, A young man who has lived the experience, of course, since being a teenager, Josh Seraphine, was homeless for a number of periods over the last 20 years as a teenager. Would you please make him welcome Josh Seraphine?
Hello everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional landowners of the land, future and emerging leaders. So today I want to share a bit about my experiences on the street. As you heard, I'm a veteran of the streets. I grew up in Perth, born and bred, and I've lost a lot of people, a lot of friends on the street. Over 30 good friends in 2 years, and in the last 6 months, I've lost six good friends to suicide in parks. So, I just want to tell you a bit about what's happened to me on the streets. So I was, when I was on the streets, I was a lion, ready to attack. I was so angry that government couldn't do anything about the housing situation. I got told that it was going to take me three years if I was homeless on the priority list, or over 10 years to be able to get housed in a permanent accommodation rather than a short-term accommodation. I was begging on the streets, so yep, I was with all those fellas that you see on the streets begging, asking for money. And Perth is full of generous, kind people. And, it's a really heartfelt, touching thing when you can exchange something with someone. Begging's been around since the dawn of time. And to be able to put yourself in that position, you lose dignity, to be able to sit there on the street with, a sleeping bag and everybody walking past like, you're a problem, or not taking any notice. So I just want to let everybody know, it does make people feel better if you give them a quick fix with a couple of bucks, but it's not the answer that Perth needs. So when I got housed, it was a very emotional time. I was coming off the streets. It was like coming off a treadmill. It took a little bit for me to wind down and reflect on everything that had happened. It was a really painful time for me. But in that came my self-discovery, self-love and self-worth. So those things were proud. I was really proud to be able to discover myself. But more importantly, be able to learn to live again, which was really hard. I didn't have much support. I had one support worker who went beyond and above, named Gary Gower. He's not here today, unfortunately, but he was a very special support worker. One we need more of, so we need a lot more jobs for support workers in that industry, to be able to support people into healthy living again. So the first 3 days of me being homeless, I broke my ankle. It was bad enough getting kicked out of public housing, but, to break your ankle while you're on the street walking around with a moon boot was another thing. I was lucky enough to be able to be positioned in a way where I was a bit of a celebrity, working with Lisa Scafidi, 6PR, Adam Shan. I went and saw Adam Shan quite regularly up at 6PR, and he was trying to support me, sort of give me sort of work, voluntary work to keep me off the street. So I spent a lot of time up there, and I remember him looking at my moon boot, going, "Gee, Josh, how can you do this?" So I'm walking around with my sleeping bag and everything on my back. Being homeless was like the worst and best thing that ever happened to me. I got the chance to be able to see things from a different perspective that, only homeless people get to see from. So, you get to see an array of things. It's quite an exciting time, but also a scary time because everyone's so vulnerable. I didn't wear shoes for 6 months. And I had a really powerful connection with walking on the earth with no shoes. And obviously I broke my toe a couple of times as well. I met a lot of people, and I had many friends and girlfriends as well. Going through that, I lost friends due to murder, suicide, drug overdoses, some with natural causes. And there's not a day that doesn't go by where I don't think about my friends that I love and miss very much. Another thing that happened to me was I got stabbed 6 times. I suffered a punctured lung, punctured liver, a centimetre away from my brain, and I was in hospital for over 3 months trying to recover. I knocked all 6 of the gang out and walked away as if I felt like I won the fight, but then realised that I got stabbed, and no one wins a fight like that. So you walk around a lot when you're homeless, and everything becomes very tiring. So you're continuously moving and sleeping in different spots night after night after night, going to the drop-in centres and, just trying to keep moving because you're told to move on a fair bit by the police. So my experience happened here in Perth, Northbridge, and, stayed solidly for 3 years on the streets of Northbridge and Perth, getting to know everybody. I guess one thing is you got to understand why people are so angry. They don't think that anybody cares, even though everybody in this room is probably heartfelt and has passionate about homelessness and do really care. But the fact of the matter is the homeless sector's been around for years, and we all know the solution to be able to, end homelessness, but yet we sit around and talk and talk and talk, and nothing seems to happen, despite who is Lord Mayor. So going on that, so I've got a good relationship with Lisa Scafidi. Everybody talks bad about her, but I'm not, because I love her heaps, and we talk every morning saying hello, and she put me in this position where I am today. I opened Homeless Prevention Week a number of years ago, and she's inspired me to be able to have the courage to get up here and speak. So without her, I wouldn't be here pretty much. Even though her outlook on certain issues, could be better. So I'm going to use Lisa as a really good example, especially for you lot. You should really pay attention to this. So basically, Lisa got exited. So just because you're in a position of power doesn't mean criticism doesn't come with that in a way you're forced out of your job. I feel for Lisa there, because not everything she did was bad, but not everything she did was good either. And, that's a good reminder for you 6 up here, that I hold you to what you say. If you're here passionate about the homeless, please help them and end it. So I'm interested. I watched Flashpoint last night and been following all 6 of you very closely, and take it seriously. Please take it as seriously as all of us and myself to try to end that matter of homelessness. So I was on the streets for many years, and the homeless need love, support, compassion, empathy, sympathy, just like our new Lord Mayor should be. They have to be passionate and committed to ending it. That will definitely win your votes in whoever's elected. So I've been up here and I've been around the homeless sector for many years. I've been pushed aside, ignored, meetings have been held off consistently, but yet I'm still lucky enough to present here today. So coming into Lord Mayor, I hope you don't do the same to me as some others have, and I hope you are willing to work with me to help try to end this situation of homelessness. In my opinion, short-term hangouts and short-term fixes aren't the fix, not at all. And we need to house these guys immediately. They're forced into that situation. So how would you like it if you had to hang out in Tranby's or Rua on a consistent basis, being as vulnerable, knowing the violence that goes on there, congregating in that one spot consistently? So it needs to be spread out. So the main issue here is, you know, the agencies here in Perth are too close together. They need to be bigger and spread out, if not cut out forever, because everybody's got a home to live in. So if I was Lord Mayor, so if I was Lord Mayor, the problem is we've got 10,000 plus homeless here in Perth, and we need accommodation. So we need homes over 10,000 plus with air conditioning and suitable accommodation. So the strategy in that is it's not putting 100 people in one building. It's, you know, minimising it, you know, 6 here, 4 there, and spread out, you know, so everybody's not living on top of each other. Because obviously that's where public housing fails, where they put everybody in that one position and they get complex issues, disasters, murders, suicides, more drug-related things like that. So going on with, you know, obviously the strategy is not putting people in jail, supporting them, being educated on the situation for the lived experience and living experience we'll get to in a sec. But just because they're homeless, they are people, but you've got to understand it creates anger. So the military train their soldiers by, you know, sleeping in different spots every night. You know, and a lot of words from homelessness run into military words. So my thinking on it is that's how you train killers, not lovers, and that needs to be thought about a bit too. So the education with the lived experience and the living experience, they're powerful things. You know, I hope I've got everybody's attention and not going to sleep on me or anything like that. But, you know, the new thing where Michelle McKenzie has really supported me in being a lived experience advocate, to be able to share that. But also I'm lucky enough to be the 2020 Unsung Hero this year for the Rotary Club in South Perth. And I cook meals for the homeless. I'm funded by the Perth Royal Golf Club. But I guess the thing is I've been given that platform to be able to create my own work. I'm a volunteer, I don't get paid for anything because it affects my accommodation. And then the whole sort of cycle starts all over again. So I'm really lucky to be able to, you know, present here today in front of all of you and share my lived experience with all of you, and hoping the best for all 6 candidates. Good luck. And I really hold you to your word, and I know that you won't let the City of Perth down. I'm a mama's boy too, Baz. So I love my mum, and, you know, but put the homeless first, eh? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Josh. Josh Seraphine, ladies and gentlemen. A lived experience advocate. So thank you, Josh, for the real life experiences. We appreciate you coming along here today. Amanda Hunt is the CEO of Uniting WA. Uniting WA is the organisation behind Tranby, ladies and gentlemen, which is an engagement and referral service for people who are in crisis and living rough in and around the City of Perth. Amanda Hunt, ladies and gentlemen, please make a welcome.
First of all, I want to acknowledge also that the land we're meeting on is the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. Pay respects to our elders. Thank you. Thank you for your welcome. We're deeply, deeply honoured. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for tending to this country for thousands and thousands of years. Well before we got here. Today is not just a race for Lord Mayors. Today is a race to end homelessness. In 2016, a number of community service leaders got together and decided that we'd change the narrative. We decided that we didn't want to just keep perpetuating the experience that people were having of homelessness. We realised that as community service providers, we were holding on to our patch, and it was very shameful. We made the decision and we stood in front of a stage at the Social Impact Festival, and those leaders are in this room, and I want to acknowledge you. Thank you for standing beside me as we decided that we would change the story. All of you here today are people who also want to be part of that change. You want to be part of the story of hope, the story of hopefulness, not homelessness. Next year, I want to change Homelessness Week to Homefulness Week. That's my challenge to all of you, because the thing is, the power is in all of your hands. Together we're a system. I see people here from state government. I see people here from local government. I see people here from federal government. Most importantly, I see people who are currently living on our streets. I see you. We see you. Josh, your point is a really good one, because one of the things that fills me with despair is that we're walking past people on our streets. We're letting people sleep rough. As you said, Auntie, we're an affluent society. There's absolutely no reason for it, other than the fact that, you know, we need to make sure that we've got affordable houses. We've got a strategy. One of the key points in that strategy is about building community capacity. You are this community. You are part of this change. You're part of driving this change. So whoever wins, we're behind that person. I know you are, and that's why you're here today. Whether you're watching on the screen or whether you're here, as Josh said, you're here because you care. It's not just because you're passionate. Passion doesn't mean anything. Quite frankly, I've been passionate for years. We still haven't ended it. We need strategies. We've got strategies. We need houses. Let's make houses available for people who are sleeping rough on our streets. Let's follow the lead of Adelaide. I have to tell you, over COVID, I was wildly envious of the work that they were doing there, because I knew how many people were in our car park at Uniting. I was sent the footage by my kind neighbours. Unfortunately, in Western Australia, since the time that those leaders came together and decided we'd end homelessness, 133 people have died on our streets. Thank you, Lisa Wood, for those statistics. This morning, 2 people died. Those are people who are loved, as you said, Josh. They're brothers, they're family members, they're members of our community that are valued, that have a contribution to make. You all have a contribution to make, and very importantly, all of you have a contribution to make. Whether you are elected as mayor or not, each of you are here because you have influence. You have power. It doesn't matter what your job is. And it doesn't matter what any of your job is. It doesn't matter if you don't have a job. What matters is that we are here together as a united front, as a system, to change the system. The only way we can change the system is when we work together. We leave nobody behind. And leaving nobody behind, using all the powers that are at our fingertips, regardless of our role, will ensure that together we end homelessness. So that's my invitation to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to Amanda, thanks to Josh, and thanks to the Lord Mayor of the City of Adelaide. It's now over to our candidates. I'm only one man. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to our candidates. To Bruce Reynolds, to Basil Zempilas, to Sandy Anghie, to Tim Schwass, to Mark Gibson, to Brodie McCulloch, and to Bain. They are our 7 speakers here today, and we appreciate them coming along. And before we have an opinion on what they say, I would ask you to give them a big round of applause for attending here today. And they may have done so with some heavy editing in their mind after our last three speakers to change their planned presentation, to give it a bit of a tweak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. I will inform you with 30 seconds to go, in which time you are to wrap your presentation. I asked for a horn, I asked for a whistle, I asked for a drum. I got the bells of Borneo. It's the best we can do in a tight situation. When you hear that, you have 30 seconds to go. I would ask the audience, please, be respectful of our presenters and their allotted time. Any interjection just creates a mess, and that's not what today is about. We are here together to educate these people, to hear your stories and to hear your questions. You may disagree with the opinions inside that 3 minutes of our speakers. There will be an allotted time immediately after each speaker. There will be a 4-minute window of questions for that speaker only from the floor. If you do have a question, raise your hand, introduce yourself and ask a question. Don't make statements. Ask a question. You may get the answer you require. As I said, a short question, and we may come up with a solution from our 7 speakers here today. If we do follow the guidelines, of course, it will make for a much more concise finish to the back half of this program, ladies and gentlemen. And we can work along with Shelter WA and, of course, the WA Alliance to End Homelessness, the objective to fix what is a catastrophic and a major issue in our city. 3 minutes per speaker, 30-second wrap-up with the Borneo bells, a 4-minute question time for that speaker only, not to anyone else, ladies and gentlemen. And I hold the final say to when each section closes as your facilitator here. Our speakers have been chosen to present in alphabetical order. I would ask you, please, ladies and gentlemen, to assist in being respectful, and let's make this work. Let's get some answers and let's fix this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, those watching on Zoom, our members of the media, would you please make welcome our first panellist here today, Sandy Anghie.
Hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. All of you here understand how important it is for everyone to have a place to call home. We need to work collaboratively to address the underlying causes of people experiencing homelessness and to help people get back into homes. The city has an important role here, working with you, the service providers and other partners, including the state government and the private sector, to put into action the WA strategy to end homelessness. Through conversations with many people over the last 4 years working on the Historic Heart project and reading the various reports, I've learnt a great deal about homelessness. I understand the complexity of the issues and there are many reasons why people experience homelessness and that there is no one-size solution fits all. I also understand there are many organisations who work in the city doing an amazing job with very limited resources to help those in need. Some that I've met over the last 4 years include Uniting, Rua, Street Chaplains, Noongar Outreach, Mission Australia, Salvation Army, and I know there's so many more. I also understand that there is so much more I can learn and I'm learning every day. And just this morning I met with Anghie and I learnt more about their early intervention programs, which is so important. Meeting with many organisations, I've also learnt about the struggle to gain funding from the city and from others. And to be honest, this doesn't make sense to me. I have many examples of the city spending money on activations and things that give people little joy. A shipping container filled with lights in 2018 for 200 grand. Imagine what any of you could do with $200,000. We need to reset and reprioritise. So if I have the privilege of being elected Lord Mayor, my plan has 4 main parts. First, we need a Lord Mayor who is a strong advocate and facilitator for further sites and funding for additional stages of the Common Ground project in the Perth CBD and for more homes. The Common Ground project announced by the government earlier this year is a step forward, but only 70 places with only 35 of those for people experiencing homelessness. We need further sites, further funding to house the hundreds of people currently experiencing homelessness. The government's looking for shovel-ready projects right now to create jobs to help us out of COVID. This is a project that needs to be prioritised. We also need 15,000 more homes. This needs to be prioritised. We do need an interim solution right now, and so my second main focus, and I've announced this last week in my plan for my first 100 days of Lord Mayor, I've committed to a minimum $2 million to fund extended trial of the Safe Night Spaces program as trialled at Homelessness Week in 2019. And we can find other spaces to help people have a safe night's sleep. Third, we can better support what you do through funding, assistance, coordination and affordable space. And we can explore possibilities to support social enterprise in the city. And these are things that I've explored through Historic Heart, organisations like Green World Revolution, who help people into jobs that have previously experienced long-term unemployment. So this is my plan to support you.
Thank you, Sandy. Questions from the floor, sir.
Very interesting sheet from Shelter WA, 132,874 unoccupied houses in WA. Only 10,000 people, that's 10,000 too many people homeless. Seems to be a pretty easy fix. What's being done about those 132,000 houses and getting people into them?
Yes, as I said, I would be a strong advocate with the state government to get people into homes, and so look at what the state government can do right now. You know, and that's a great point that you've made. You know, I've heard other examples of different buildings that are vacant across the city where the owners would actually happily put those up to be used for people to have a safe place to sleep. So we need to work collaboratively with the state government to make that happen.
Further questions for Sandy? Yes, ma'am, you be upstanding. Yes, in the stripe top. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Fran Larson from the Australian Red Cross. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your views and insights. I was just wondering how you were planning on engaging with people with lived and living experiences in the design of any of the policies that you plan on putting in place.
So my policies are not new. We've got an amazing strategy created by the WA Homelessness Alliance. So my view is that we should be working with existing reports. We've got so many reports, we've got so many plans. It's time to stop talking and writing reports and start doing what's already been set out by so many amazing people. The plans are there, we need to take action.
Any further questions? Yes, sir, in the front here. Be up, just one moment, be upstanding. We'll bring the mic to you so everyone can hear your question. Thank you.
It's like in our own backyard, we're living in poverty. I mean, you've got that many young people down there. They're mainly all young ladies. There's no toilets. There's no washing machines. There's nothing for them. I mean, there's a little net thing there with all sand, and you've got pigeons going in there. I mean, is it sooner or later that something's going to be done before someone else dies? I mean, you've got an old bloke who can't even walk, who's got his bike stolen. These sort of things are happening every night. There's someone coming around and waking the people up who's trying to live in peace, but we can't live in peace because we're out in a place where there's no security at all for us.
Yep, and that's why, you know, building homes, we need more homes, but we need an interim solution, and that's why I'm saying the City of Perth needs to take action and put their money where their mouth is and help provide safe places for people to sleep and do the most that we can as soon as we can to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any further questions yet? Once again, behind you. Just wait for the microphone if you could. Thank you.
Would have thought my voice was loud enough, Tim, but another question, Sandy. So you made the comment there's been lots of strategy documents and reports, and like you, I've read a lot of them and a lot of them make sense. The elders who did the Welcome to Country made the point, as did Josh, that homeless has been around for a long time. So we have all the strategies. Where are the blockers? Why isn't it happening? Who needs a kick in the arse?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, who needs a kick in the arse? Maybe the state government and the City of Perth. I think, like I said, you know, it's putting our money where our mouth is, and we know what we need. We need more homes. So we need to advocate strongly for the state government to do that. But the City of Perth can provide interim solutions and fund interim solutions. So we need to do that. We need to reallocate, reset the budget and prioritise this.
Thank you very much. Put your hands together for Sandy Anghie, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Sandy. Would you please welcome our second speaker, Bain.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, and particularly their elders, Uncle Ben and Anghie Mingley. It feels such a sense of comfort to have you in the room today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, the Noongar people. We've been doing lots of speeches during this campaign, and I'm delighted to finally make it to a Shelter WA event. I launched my campaign officially at the start of Homelessness Week because I believe there is no Lord Mayor in this country that shouldn't have helping homelessness as its #1 priority. It is the most critical issue facing our city, and it needs a compassionate, smart and diligent response. We all have our own stories, and thank you, Josh, for your story. Some are much, much more traumatic than others. Today, I want to share my story, or should I say my mother's story. In 1976, she caught a train from Sydney and landed in Wundowie. She was escaping an abusive relationship. She had 3 young children, and after leaving school at 14, she wasn't exactly qualified for much work. She lived with her sister, scraped together some money, and would go to Perth trying to get a job. Disaster struck. She got pregnant with me. I was an accident, and that relationship was equally disastrous. In 1978, Mum with 4 young kids was again sitting in Perth begging for a social house. There was a waiting list, there always is, and an officer in what eventually became Homes West managed to wrangle a favour, and we got our first home in Belmont. We weren't the best tenants. I remember the grass came up to my knees and regular complaints from Grace and Ben next door, but we had a home. We had a roof over our head, and from there, opportunities came knocking, literally. The Seventh-day Adventists, the missionaries, they knocked on our door and they said they'd be happy to take me into their flock and give me a private school education. Life for me has just got better and better, but it started with being given a house. I have a lived experience of what it means to be given a house. That's why today I'm supporting Auntie Mingley and Betsy's campaign to house the homeless. You are community leaders, Auntie Mingley, and I will follow your lead. If elected Lord Mayor, I'll support your plan this way. It's a human right to have a safe night's sleep. I will support the by name list, and I'll look for buildings, city assets, beds, hostels, hotels to provide a safe night's sleep. I'll work on ensuring that people who are in tents are quickly afforded a bed and a shower. I'll trial a shuttle bus to help take people to the services they require. We can do better, Perth. My personal promise, I will be a full-time, inclusive and committed Lord Mayor to ending homelessness. Thanks.
Stay with us, Di. Questions from the floor for Di Bain. In the front, microphone up the front, second row. Introduce yourself and your question.
I'm Tara, the first ever lived experience representative nominated to the Board of Directors of Shelter WA. And my question is, what are you going to do with move-on notice for the rough sleepers? Because it's great to provide, to promise to house people, but what are you going to do in the meantime when we have these redundant, very Victorian laws that actually criminalise being homeless? And I also think that Perth is very redundant in the way that we address homelessness, because look at the Viennese model of social housing. Poland has in their urban planning policy, they have to develop architecture in around suburban areas to accommodate homelessness, because we have to admit there's always going to be homeless people. And I'm really interested in your response.
Yeah, they do the same in London. The Prince of Wales Housing Foundation does the same thing. Every new development has a part of it, which is social housing. But in terms of move-on notices, obviously, I'm a rational person, and I find it bemusing that everyone's calling for more police and safety on our streets, but the police are saying to me, where do we move them on? There's nowhere to go. And I can't believe nighttime is the most dangerous time, and yet there's very few beds available or very few places available. So I think the city can play a role there. We can bridge that little bit of a gap. It's up to the state government to provide long-term housing solutions. They've got the deep pockets, but it's up to the city to actually step in and go, how can we provide someone with their basic human right a safe night's sleep?
Thank you for your question. Question over there against the wall for Di Bain.
Hi, many thanks for your presentation. It was fantastic. My name is Lisa Halton and I'm the director of Studio Halton and co-founder of Studio Kinship with Clifton. It's fantastic that we've been talking for years about homeless solutions, housing solutions, but yet have we actually asked the community, and what will you do to endorse that to ensure that we provide culturally appropriate housing for our homeless?
That's a big question. You know, I think it's an absolute correct statement to make. We need culturally appropriate housing. I know the house that we had, that my mum was given, is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom place on a 1/4-acre block. Like, it was huge. There needs to be lots of conversations around that, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
There's a question here, ma'am. Yep, be upstanding if you would. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Trish Blake, I'm just a concerned citizen. So my question is, we've got all these plans, but one of the issues we have, not just in the City of Perth, but everywhere, is the NIMBYs, the not in my backyard. You know, and that carries on from what Tara was saying. You know, police do move on notices because there are businesses and there are local residents who say, I don't want these people in my backyard, nor do I want the homeless shelter in my backyard. And as Amanda pointed out earlier, she kindly gets photographs from her neighbours pointing out how many people are sleeping where they should be sleeping. So how do you propose to bring the community along? Because there's very powerful voices. There's a lot of money out there who don't want this in the city and they just want it shut away.
Yeah, I think it's a leadership question, and I don't think we've seen much leadership out of the city around bridging the kind of myth about what it means to be homeless. And if I'm in a privileged position, and being Lord Mayor, indeed being on council is a privileged position, if I'm in that role, I'll use everything at my disposal to ensure that that conversation isn't a difficult conversation. To Josh's point, we need to ensure that it's actually not just you know, the services in one spot. It's a shared responsibility. So I think we need to really work with our surrounding councils in Perth. I know that people want to land in Perth because of the public transport and the hospitals and all of that kind of thing, but it is a shared responsibility. But it's a leadership question ultimately.
Put your hands together for Di Bain, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Di. Appreciate your time here today. Our third speaker, Mark Gibson.
Do you mind if I take that out, or is that no? Oh, except it's attached to that. I'm just going to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to talk about what is the most pressing issue facing our city right now, and that is homelessness. Josh, how can anyone listen to your story, look you in the eye, and not say that they want to end homelessness? Neville, how can anyone look you in the eye and say they don't want to end homelessness? Neville, Ansom, Nolene, they're living under a bridge a few hundred metres from my house. And to me, that breaks my heart. And I want to know, what sort of a country are we living in when our First Nations people, let alone any people, are sleeping under a bridge next to a railway line in a tent? So I'm going to cut straight to the chase about solutions. No, Tim, I'm not changing my speech at the last minute because I've been banging on about this for a while. We need more housing, and we need it now, and there's no reason why we don't have it. I've been quoting the figures for weeks now during the campaign. Yes, we need 15,000 homes. There are more than 14,000 people on the public housing waiting list. There are 1,000 people sleeping rough on our streets in Perth every night. The only way to fix homelessness is to provide housing. What have I been doing about it in the meantime? I've been sitting with Neville under the bridge. I've been meeting with these people, yes, starting from the grassroots up, from the bottom up, not just having bureaucrats and wannabe politicians dictating to how we should do this, listening to the people who are sleeping rough and finding out how to fix it. I've also been working tirelessly with groups like Perth Homeless Support Group, Street Friends WA. Many of them are here today. I've got to know them very well. And I've been searching for accommodation. I've been taking it upon myself, not waiting to be elected, to find at least transitional accommodation. We're not the state government. I will put every ounce of pressure on the state government to come up with the 15,000 homes. But what I can do is get out there and identify properties. And I have an announcement for you today, because with Seppo, raise your hand, Seppo. Seppo's from Street Friends WA, a remarkable human being. Seppo Seppo is a mental health nurse, a tireless volunteer for the homeless, someone who has lived experience of homelessness. I've been working with Seppo. We identified a backpacker's place in the city which was forced to close down because of COVID, and I saw more than 50 beds sitting in a backpacker's place with no one sleeping on them. And then I saw Neville under the bridge. That didn't make sense to me. The announcement I have is that late yesterday afternoon, Seppo and I had a meeting with the owners of the backpackers hostel, and they've agreed to rent it to us for the purpose of homelessness as transitional accommodation with discounted rent, with 3 months free rent if we sign a 2-year lease. And we're going to do that, aren't we? We're going to sign that lease and we're going to give people a roof over their head. A lot of people say that fixing homelessness isn't really the Lord Mayor's problem, it's the state government. Fixing homelessness will not be my job if I'm elected Lord Mayor, it will be my mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ma'am, just wait for the microphone. The microphone required is for the people watching on Zoom so they can actually hear the questions being asked from the floor. You know those AFL press conferences where you see the coach and you don't know what the question is? We're trying to fix that problem right here. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, thank you, Mark. I hope you can hear me because I'm deaf today as well as half blind. But my question is, and also the panel, the rest of it, are you aware that a lot of people are in precarious housing, like myself? I live in a private rental and I haven't had a lease for 6 years or more. I've forgotten how long. My landlady said she'll be thinking about it, and I'm one of the people who might be homeless in, say, about 2 weeks. And the other thing is the largest demographic is older single women, and I don't mean the 50 plus, I mean the 60 or 70 age group. And what are people going to do? Are you aware of the precarious housing? And what could people like myself need to do except turn up here at Shelter WA all the time and speak out? Because a lot of women feel ashamed that and I say, well, it's not your fault you're in this position living with your son or daughter, and often your daughter-in-law doesn't like you anyway. So, well, thank you, Mark. Look, and I love your thing. I hope you do.
Thank you. Look, I hate to single out groups because I want to say that phrase all the time. It breaks my heart seeing the women who are sleeping rough. It breaks my heart that anyone is. But you're right, I'm very well aware of the demographics with the women. There are younger women with children who are often too scared to seek help because they're worried they're going to lose the children. They're often sleeping in cars. I've seen it and I've met them, and it's horrific. I'm not so aware of what you're saying about your precarious living. So why you can't sign a lease ongoing? So guess what? At least there is a moratorium in place on evictions. No one can be evicted through till next March. That's one thing. And that's another thing I'd love to see extended. The fact that we're kicking people out of public housing onto the street. I mean, I ask you. Neville, the other one from that is prisons. Neville, I hope you don't mind me saying. Neville was in prison. Neville was in prison. He was released from prison 3 years ago. He's still on the street 3 years later. Hasn't had a roof over his head.
Let's go to Zoom. We have a question on Zoom, I'm led to believe. So we just need the microphone there. Go ahead. Mark Gibson has your ear.
Okay, so what are your plans to assist those with mental health issues that need accommodation?
Really good question. Very happy to answer it because that's where Seppo comes in. Seppo's a mental health nurse. Mental health issues are absolutely towards the top of the list for the reasons that spark homelessness. And that's why when we found this building, we said, we're not just going to stop at trying to get a building with 50 or 60 beds and have some half-stop measure. That's where Seppo comes in. She's a mental health nurse. She will give all the wraparound services to this facility, and it is vital with any facility that it's not just a roof over your head. It is so much more. And the mental health services, as well as the more broad health services generally, are absolutely vital to that.
You have 2 questions inside the last minute, sir.
Yeah, I want to know about coronavirus, the coronavirus 19. How come we still left on the streets and now we're still here? Are we going to still be on the streets by the time people do anything about it?
Do you know what? And that is one of my biggest fears right now. Our borders are going to reopen. Coronavirus will probably hit Western Australia again. We've been very lucky so far. What happens to people like you when coronavirus hits and it wipes through Tent City at the end under the Lord Street Bridge?
That's right. Yeah.
Last question, sir. Just passed straight across the aisle. Last question for Mark Gibson.
How you going, Mark?
Good, Wayne.
Wayne from Perth Home Support
Yes.
Group. We have met before. I just
Yep.
want to know what your plans are with the people that are sleeping in tents near MacGyver train station. They get moved on every single day, right? They go from there to another place. They might go to Wellington
Well, that
Square
doesn't solve
or
anything,
somewhere
does
else.
it? Doesn't solve anything. Well, put it this way. I don't believe in demonising or criminalising homeless people, put it that way. So I'm not about moving them on anywhere and making it someone else's problem. That's just not going to cut it. Hopefully some of them come into this backpackers place as temporary accommodation. But they can't be moved on, but we've got to find them housing, Wayne. We've got to give them a more permanent roof over their head. And I've said it and I'll say it again. I'm not going to stop until we do. That's all I can promise.
You're going to stop now because your time's up. Put your hands together, Mark Gibson. Well done. Our fourth speaker, ladies and gentlemen, and the line of questioning and the line of passion in the room is palpable. It is outstanding and respectful. Let's continue. Put your hands together for Brodie McCulloch, ladies and gentlemen.
Great. So thank you, Mark. Yeah, I think really interesting, lots of ideas about how we can tackle homelessness in Perth and really address in really practical ways. But I guess that's the challenge, is these are ideas. And definitely, Mark, I think, let me have a look at the lease before you sign it, because 3 months doesn't sound like enough rent-free in Perth at the moment. We've got a huge opportunity in Perth where we have massive challenges, but a real opportunity to make a big difference. I set up Space Cube 10 years ago now and have been really passionate about social change and how we can make that difference in Perth. My passion for creating change comes from two places. One is my parents. So mum is was an emergency nurse and dad was a social worker, and worked with many of you across regional WA, Lex McCulloch in the Department of Child Protection. And I think those values are really key to this role and how the Lord Mayor can lead. The second thing is my partner, so Jani. His brother has had drug and alcohol issues, which have led to mental health issues, which either lead to homelessness or to prison. And I think having that experience and seeing how difficult it is to access mental health services has really driven me, and Jani and I had a conversation about this when I was looking at running for Lord Mayor, about is this a job I can do that will have an impact in that space? Because homelessness is the end of a journey, and really looking at the causes is something that we need to do. So those experiences in my life and that history in my life is what drives me to set up organisations like Space Cubed, which has supported the Social Impact Festival, and a whole range of different initiatives in Perth and entrepreneurs who are creating more social change. That's the experience I bring. So my plan really comes down to two things. One is the short-term interventions, and we've heard a lot throughout this campaign around short-term interventions, which are very important. And there's a lot that's happening right now with Lottery West, investing into a lot of your organisations to make sure that those short-term interventions happen. And the City of Perth can definitely do more. It can do more around, we've heard some of the ideas around car parks, around short-term accommodation creation within some of the city's own assets. There's a $1.9 million budget approved for this next financial year to support outreach and homeless service providers. But really we need to look at the systemic issues that are leaving us with this increasing issue in Perth. And those systemic issues is really what I can bring to this role, having been through a Churchill Fellowship, looking at innovative models to scale social impact, and really being the recipient of a lot of work to be able to create that change. So that systemic issue is what I can bring as Lord Mayor, and bring the ideas to work collaboratively with you as the sector, the state government, to work around how to create more homes, but also to work on some of the ideas that will really create longer term change. So I'm excited about how we can work together to lead change in Perth, to create a smart, vibrant and global city. Thank you.
Thank you, Brodie. Questions for Brodie McCulloch, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, microphone is coming.
Hi, Brodie. Mel Ashton from St Bart's.
Hi, Mel.
Everyone's talked a lot about the houses and the accommodation. What about the army of people that we need to look after these people? What are the plans around that, not just from you, but from the rest of the candidates? Thank you.
Yeah, and this is where I think we really need to look at what are the innovative solutions, and the ideas that I've had coming back from the community around this are really important. More funding, one of the things that I would advocate for, so the Lord Mayor gets 2 meetings a year with the Premier as part of the Capital City Act, putting homelessness at the top of that agenda to advocate for more funding. The other thing I'm a bit concerned about is I haven't heard much in this space with the, there's about still another $2 billion of stimulus from the state government to be allocated as part of COVID-19 recovery. I haven't heard much about, is that going to go into social housing? Will it go into additional support services as more people are at risk of homelessness over the coming months and years because of the economic impact of COVID-19? So I think there is, it's a bigger investment opportunity, but it's one that as Lord Mayor I would advocate for.
Two things that need sorting. The first one's money, and the second one's leadership. Now, lots of chat about the government, be it state or federal, and perhaps even local, although you've got the least money of the lot, I think, should be doing something. The solution is not saying the government should do it. They have to contribute in terms of funding. I don't think you want them doing it. I spent 3/4 of my career in the state public service, stuffed if I know why, because I got sick of the bureaucracy. That's not where you want this done. You want the leadership, and you need it from the private sector. I mean, that's the only way it's going to happen. We have not seen it from state or federal or local governments ever. So I would put to question for you and all the other candidates, how are you going to galvanise the movers and the shakers in this state who can make a difference and have got mates who've got deep pockets and actually put the money on the table and force the state and federal governments to also stump up the money? You need someone like a Gina Reinhardt leading the charge who can get on the phone and call the Premier and the Prime Minister and say, you need to do this. Unfortunately, I don't think any of us in the room here today can do that. That's what you need.
Question?
Yeah, so I built Space Cube through collaboration, and it was collaboration with the private sector, with property groups, with the community to actually make that happen. So that's one of my core skill sets, and the role of Lord Mayor is really a collaboration role. Besides, chairing the meetings with council and working with the CEO to execute, it really is all about collaboration, and the city can create those strategies, which it can then present to the state government, present to federal government, and importantly, present to business. So I think business has largely been left out of this conversation, where there is a big opportunity for business to play a role, whether that's through different mechanisms, social impact bonds we haven't looked at in detail in Western Australia, the financing and funding of affordable housing and transitional housing is another one. So there's definite opportunities which just we haven't even started, we've begun exploring, but I think it's about more than exploring now. We actually need to action a lot of these big ideas.
Any more questions for Brodie? Yes, from the Red Cross, if I remember rightly.
Hi, Carrie-Anne from the Australian Red Cross. I was just wondering, you talk about the justice system and people coming out of the justice system at risk of homelessness. Do you plan on working with the justice system to try and better support people coming out of it that are at risk of that?
So I think the role of the Lord Mayor is one around changing the narrative around homelessness and working with the justice system. It's working with all stakeholders to create that change. And as we've heard, people want more than just ideas. It is around actually creating change. So the role is to work across all levels of government and with business, and importantly with residents. And it's been interesting through this process where residents, they want to see change, and not change as in move people on. They feel like they want to contribute in some way. So I think that's the role of the city, is to reduce those barriers. Definitely agree, it's not the city's role to deliver a lot of this. It's to work with the sector who already has all the plans, has the ideas to actually execute on that. And that's what I bring to this role as Lord Mayor. I've built an organisation over 10 years that supports thousands of others to actually execute and deliver on their ideas. And that's what I can bring to this role.
Thank you, Brodie McCulloch, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Brodie. Our next speaker, Bruce Reynolds.
Alrighty, it's not too much of a mess. Thanks, mate. Where'd Josh go? Mate, if I'm in a trench and I'm looking for someone with courage, honesty, decency and loyalty, mate, people like you are the people that we need right beside us when the bullets are flying around our ears. Okay. In the room we have stakeholders, we have members of parliament, we have powerful people, but we also have volunteers. We have people at the coalface every single day. They've got red tape. Sometimes the red tape goes out the window. Sometimes it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're answering calls. They're the silent angels in our community, and I just wanted to thank you for being here today. And obviously, you're in a situation where you're kind of fed up of hearing the platitudes that political figures make and promise. You've given up because you've got work to do and you just get on with it. So I really do thank you. For those that don't know me, my name's Bruce Reynolds. I've been in business for 24 years, and like Di, I do come from humble beginnings, proudly, and I just had to learn to make $20 in my pocket as a 15-year-old apprenticeship, as apprentice turned into 21 and 22. I'm certainly not loaded or powerful, but like that gentleman there, sometimes you have to stand up, and I wish you'd stood up. Maybe I wouldn't be here, because some of the common sense stuff that you brought to the conversation tonight, or this afternoon, is the sort of conversations that we are needing. Ending homeless is a fantastic ideal, isn't it? It is a fantastic ideal. And if we can do it or not, that's for debate. But what we can do is we certainly can provide shelter, and that could look in a million different ways for 1,000 different people. Some people just need, like Gary, who sleeps a little bit down in Aberdeen Street from me, he just needs somewhere to lock up, somewhere to be safe for the night, so he can go about his business the next day. Someone like Josh with a future, he's capable and can service a home and live in that environment. But you know, Josh, a lot of your mates aren't quite ready for that yet. So we need to be there for everyone in our community. There are 500 to 1,000 individual stories on the streets tonight. There's going to be next year, make no mistake about it. After all the conversations, there's going to be a swell of more, and those at the front line, they know it, and they're going to need a whole heap of support. My role is to make sure that I am a voice, a tireless voice, to make sure that I am there, and I will follow through, and I will be honest with every individual that I come across, and I will look them in the eyes, and I won't have the Rolex on my arm and a handshake with looking aside that I've experienced over the last couple of weeks, certainly not from anyone here. They're outstanding individuals, every one of them. But out in the community, those people that you want from private sector, not all of them necessarily want it in their backyard. But the people on the streets, they look you straight in the eyes because they're looking for truth. They're looking to see if you're full of shit. And I tell you right now, I will always be there for anyone, whether it's 2 a.m, giving them a roll, having a conversation and saying, "G'day, I will be a voice. And I don't need a title. I don't need a selfie. I'll be there for the rest of my life. I promise you that."
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce Reynolds, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions from Bruce Reynolds? We got one coming off the Zoom.
There is a view that homeless people are preventing people coming into the city and preventing the city being revitalised. What are your views?
There's lots of views, and that's one of them. Our role as a community is stop looking at the homeless and those that are disadvantaged as a part of our community and actually understand that they're a part of our community, okay? And until we brace them and get down on our knees to the level and understand the stories and treat them with open honesty, but we treat them with this thing here and we actually do love them and embrace them, then we'll find solutions, the 1,000 solutions we need tonight, the 2,500 or whatever solutions we need this time next year. We need to make sure that we understand and we find narratives from their point of view, not from our point of view, standing over there and telling them how we think they need it. We need to listen and find out what they need.
Gentlemen, yes, sir. Be upstanding and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Bruce, good afternoon. Jonathan Shapiro. I am a lived experience advocate. My son and myself actually spent several years living on the streets of Darwin and Perth. And in regards to a lot of what you've heard as far as the damage that is concerned, I don't think a lot of you really understand what you're about to step into. Unless you've actually been on the streets and have been there, it's too hard to really understand. Myself personally, I do not believe that we can end homelessness, but my question for you is really engaging with the lived experience as far as going forward is concerned. If one of you do get elected, what are the other 6 going to do? We've been hearing these stories, and I've been doing this for 6 years, in regards to actually getting the whole word out there of what the lived experience is all about. We're about to start the Lived Experience Council, to which we have a document to do with the homeless protocol for local government. Now, I've been pushing that around. Would you be prepared to sign a document that engages, and we've had this stand before in regards to the rangers pushing the people around. We don't need them pushed around, we need them dealt with. And what we've heard as far as I spent my time on the street in Mark McGowan's electorate, and still nothing is done. We're sick and tired of hearing the bullshit about all these stories. We want something done today, and I don't give a damn whether it's bed down, sleep bus or whatever, but sleep is a genuine necessity. And I'm sorry to carry on, but when you're going to talk about mental health, then you talk about the idea of not mental health and then homelessness, but homelessness and then mental health. It's an issue that I don't think any of you really understand, and what you need to provide as far as wraparound services are concerned. On Sunday was announced a boost for Perth, and a $1 billion boost of some sort. Part of that was $36 million allocated for homelessness, to which one of you is going to be responsible for. Give me $36 million and I could wipe homelessness from the whole country.
Agreed.
Why can't we do it today? And I want, Bruce, I'd like you and even the rest of them to really acknowledge the fact that we can't sit around and chat and bullshit and carry on. Something has got to be done. Thank you.
I'll quickly answer. It was more of a statement, but I had the privilege of crossing paths to you as we came out of the elevator, and you gave me a snippet of your story. And I know it's probably it's a book long, but the snippet of the story, the reality is what you just did then is you gave us a statement. And sir, the universe gave you your set of experiences so you can carry that statement. And we need to be the people that when these lights go off, whether we've got a title or not, when these lights go off and we progress through the rest of our life, that we give you people the opportunity in your shoes to get your statement out. Absolutely.
Any more questions for Bruce? Yep, ma'am.
Financial Counsellors Association of WA, and I just want to know, as going forward, how much you want to try and collaborate with other peak bodies regarding the long-term impact of homelessness with people. We talk a lot about transitional housing, but without a basic income and an income that is consistent, people are going to constantly be out on the street. So without a basic income, and I also would like to know how much you're behind the Raise the Rate campaign, because, you know, if you're only on $272 a week, you can't even afford to rent anything. So what are you going to do? You know, this is a really big issue, and people need a basic income just to survive and to keep a roof over their head. So I'd like to know what your opinion is about that.
I concur, and unfortunately, even in a role of Lord Mayor, while we can advocate for those sorts of things, we don't hold those particular purse strings. But when you were just talking about collaboration, 3 minutes, and I probably wrote 5 minutes there, as a body of collaborators, you guys who are in the services, and I've been involved with non-for-profits for 20 years. The first opportunity I've had, I've just followed that through, and I've been really active wherever and however I could, through heart and through hands. But we need to get you guys, and you guys know this, collaborating. I would love to see a charity chamber, not just for homelessness, but like a convention centre, almost not that size, chamber where we can have an open environment like Brodie has built, where all the different charities can come together, and then they can use each other like a washing machine of ideas without the overheads of the individual rents. And then, because the reality is you're all fighting over a shrinking dollar, and that fundraising dollar gets eaten up with the overheads. If we as a state government and we as a local body, the local government body, can provide you somewhere where you can provide your services, because we've seen these fantastic charities start from a kitchen table, and we've seen the big guys. Wouldn't it be good if you got together in an open environment, sharing ideas, not being so competitive, not fighting over what's left over on the table and the dollar, and seeing what we can do together as a whole community?
Thank you, Bruce. Okay. Bruce Reynolds, ladies and gentlemen. Our second last speaker is Tim Schwass. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Where's the microphone? We're usually mic'd up, but not today. Can I just start by saying that 10 years prosecuting child abuse cases for the Welfare Department, 30 years as a magistrate has taught me to contain my feelings. I might get away from that today. Firstly, most of you are probably aware of my name because of a headline in the newspaper that said magistrate wants to lock up the homeless. That is true. That's what the headline said. The people that read the article would see that that's not what I meant. People that go to my website will see that that is not what I meant. It arose in the context of when we get to the stage where we can offer genuine assistance to everybody on the street, and they unreasonably refuse that assistance. I doubt whether there'll be anybody in that position, because genuine assistance must be something that they will accept. But if there are people who, for whatever reason, don't want to accept that assistance, there has to be a way of dealing with that. And it was in that context that the headline arose, which was completely erroneous. So get it clear, I'm not about locking people up. Now, you people know what needs to be done. I have no plans at all. There is a plan, there is an alliance. The City of Perth is part of that alliance, and you want to know what I will do as Mayor to complete that plan. Personally, it's not just tokenism, but perhaps it is. I don't know, I don't care. I'm going to repurpose the mayoral car. The chauffeur's gone, the limousine's gone, you get a car. So I'll say I'll take a van and I will give it to you people. I'll give it to Shelter WA. Here's the car, here's the credit, here's the fuel card. It's insured, make sure you get it serviced, make sure somebody's got a driver's license to drive it. Go and pick up the people off the streets and take them to the accommodation. We need 1,000 beds straight off. Thanks to Gibbo and Seppo, we've got 50 already. We've only got 950 to go and nobody's been appointed mayor. We're doing great. We've got to find those 1,000 beds. They're not all going to be in the same place. They're going to be spread around. The boys that come from Somalia who I've dealt with as a magistrate, they will go somewhere where they are known and welcomed and dealt with appropriately. There won't be great clumps of ex-homeless people put together. They'll be spread out. We've got 950 beds to look for. I don't believe I've had 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes.
It's right here, Mr. Schwass.
But anyway, I went to WAM the other night, which was it was great, launching their program, pointing out the obvious. $1 billion spent on mental health in WA, $1,500 a night for a mental health bed. And 10 days is the average stay, $15,000. How much accommodation can Seppo find for that $15,000? It's crazy the way we spend money, not enough on prevention, and prevention is providing people with proper homes.
Thank you, Tim, and don't argue with the bells of Borneo. Bells of Borneo tell no lies. Questions for Tim Schwass, please. From
Yeah,
the
I
floor.
have a question.
Yeah, thank you.
My name's Noreen. I feel I'm being deprived as an Aboriginal woman and a mother and a grandmother. I live the streets under the tent. I need a house.
Yep.
All my children and my grandchildren have been institutionalised. I've never been institutionalised. To go into these accommodation places, they're all institutionalised. And it's a fear for me. So I prefer to live in a tent. So can you help me? I don't want to go to jail. This is how it's all set up in this system here. We need to pull the fences down, please.
Sure. Well, look, Seppo behind you there's got 50 places apparently, and we're on our way. You don't want another review, you don't want another report, you want somewhere to take yourself and your family tonight, where you'll be safe and where you can stay, and whilst permanent accommodation is found. You might be there for 6 months, you might be there for 9 months, but you need a roof over your head and to be safe.
A question for...
Oh, actually, there's a few people in jail who are on parole and they can't get out of jail because no housing for them.
Well, that's insane, because...
It's insane,
but
and it's all Indigenous.
how much does
Well, when are you going to help us?
How much does it cost to keep a prisoner? There's all sorts of figures bandied around about how much a prisoner costs to keep in jail, and it depends what you take into account. But it's got to be cheaper to provide them with proper accommodation than keeping them in jail.
Seppo has a question.
Seppo's been working all night, so if she's a bit sluggish, give her that allowance.
I've come to know Tim now, and you know, he knows I came from a night shift, but that's why I didn't want to go to bed, because I wanted to remain alert to advocate on behalf of the homeless. What this woman is talking about, the people in jail and those with bail conditions, the Department of Justice is actually working with Aboriginal Aboriginal legal services to do that. So that's a fact, and it has to be taken seriously. So the other thing, Tim, I wanted to show you this. I'm an African, and this is a proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes all of us here to raise a child. What are you going to do about the homeless?
Yeah, Hillary Clinton has made a lot of mileage out of that, but she came second. Let's bear that in mind. What I'm going to do, and I can do, is enhance the hub. The hub is more of a concept than a reality. It's al fresco, as we all know. It's got a public toilet, a drinking fountain, and a half a dozen park benches. I'm going to advocate that the City of Perth spring for a proper building where you people will be, and there'll be coordination, all springing from that hub, so that people who need accommodation, they don't wander around, they go through that the funnel leading to the hub where everybody will know what's going on. And if there's accommodation available, we've got a backpackers hostel that's now available. Do you want to go there? We're looking for the other 950 beds.
Put your hands together for Tim Schwass, ladies and gentlemen. Good on you, Tim. Thank you. Last speaker, Basil Zempilas.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. As I have done at each of our gatherings, I'd like to acknowledge my fellow candidates and our fellow candidates here. The contest of ideas that we've been involved in has been terrific, and I hope that Perth and the City of Perth will be the winner out of the 2-month campaign that we've all been a part of. My congratulations to my fellow Sikhs. Can I also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and thank them for their vast contribution? And can I thank all of you, many of you service providers in the room, many of you who have been kind enough to open your doors to both me and on occasion my wife Amy. It's been a great pleasure for us to come and visit your facilities, and it's been a great education for me. And it's been a journey of education and discovery for me in the 9 months really of this year that I think I knew that I was going to be running for Lord Mayor, or at least certainly opened my mind to the prospect. And there were things that I needed to learn, because there were things that, quite frankly, I was not up to speed with prior. And I think the fundamental thing that I was not up to speed with prior, before meeting many of you, talking to many of you, people like Jesse who are in the room, who was good enough to reach out and contact me and help me understand the situation around homelessness better, was that not everybody who is on the street, many of the people that are on the street obviously do not want to be there. But there are not people on the street who choose to be there. And that was a misapprehension that I was under. That was a mistake of me to think that there were people on the streets who chose that life. But it is clear to me now, from having looked, and discovered that the very vast majority of people who are on the street do not want to be there. And it is our job, as a civilised society, as my Uncle Con used to tell me, we live in a civilised society. It is our job to provide for those people. And that is something that I am now well and truly aware of. I can't offer all the solutions, clearly. I can't give you all the answers. I don't know many of the answers to many of the questions that you may well ask me, because I'm not an expert in this field. But I know many of you are experts in this field. So what I can give you, what I can offer you, should I be successful as Lord Mayor, and even if I am not, as many of you have made the very fine point today, what I can offer you is me. I can offer you the connection that I might be able to give you to some of those service providers, or indeed some of those government officials that you can't get the answers from. So, Madam, for example, if it is the Minister for Social Services that you need to see, perhaps I can help there. That's what I can offer you today. a connection to those people that might be able to give you answers that you are otherwise unable to get to. And if you have experienced that, or if you are frustrated by that, please come and see me today and let me know who it is that you are not able to get to see. Because my commitment to you is to stand with whoever needs to be stood alongside to get change made.
Thank you, Basil. Basil Zempilas, ladies and gentlemen. Josh at the back.
Yeah, hi, Baz.
Hi, Josh.
Many years ago, I remember you coming out on the streets, coming to the soup van kitchen. I was standing in front of you. You probably didn't realise that. Also speaking with Ben Cousins, who has faced homelessness himself. My question would be, do you promise to make and get those houses immediately, over 10,000 to 15,000 plus houses immediately? If you were voted in as Lord Mayor, would you promise?
Josh, I can't do that. I'd like to stand here and promise that to you, but I can't. And that would be misleading you, and that would be giving you false hope. That is not the role of the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth. But the role of the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth is to go with you up to Parliament House, if that's what you want to do, knock on the door, we'll demand a meeting with the Premier, we'll demand a meeting with Simone McGurk, and let's sit down with them and ask them, would you like to do that? Because that's what we should do. I can't give you that promise though, Josh.
Just front here, gentleman in the hat. Mike coming.
What if those people, like, what if a storm was to come through tonight, and it was a fierce one to come through tonight,
Sure.
and then people, the women and the old people, what would happen if they never had accommodation?
Yeah.
And what if they were badly hurt in a storm that comes through tonight that we would not know that's coming?
Sure. So many people have advocated up on the stage interim solutions, and many of you who will follow this campaign know that I'm advocating an interim solution, and that is a program out of Brisbane called Bed Down, where unused, safe nighttime spaces within the city are used for accommodation, temporary accommodation, where wraparound services are provided, bedding is provided, and a safe nighttime space that takes people out of the open, out of the doorways, out of the streets and out of unsafe environments into an otherwise safe and unused nighttime location.
Baz, g'day.
Jesse.
Thank you for mentioning me earlier, and you did agree to meet with me some weeks ago to get a feel. And you say you've been listening and learning along the journey since you made those famous comments in the column in the West last year, which have come back to haunt you a little more recently, I think. However, I note that you agree to take Josh up to meet with the Premier and meet with the Minister. You say you can go and sit down with them and ask them what can be done. What are you going to tell them needs to be done? Because there comes a point in time where people like yourself need to use a platform to speak to those who can actually deliver solutions. And you need to speak to people like my other friend back here, Jonathan, who has got a proposal to deliver Bed Down. We've heard you talk about it. We know that it works in Brisbane. We've got no idea how it's actually going to come together over here. I know that Jonathan would love to discuss with you exactly how this thing rolls out. But until we've got some specifics, at the moment you're talking a lot about listening and learning, but I haven't actually seen you coming down to talk to people like Neville, except in these very rarefied halls.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So I haven't been elected, obviously, but I have looked, I've studied Bed Down, I've spoken with Norm McGilvray, who is the founder of Bed Down, a gentleman out of Brisbane whose father was stabbed after experiencing mental issues on the streets of London when he was 44 years of age. He lost his father, he was only a young boy. His family migrated to Brisbane without a dad, and in recent times, in the last 3 years, seeing the problems of homelessness in Brisbane, his idea was to begin Bed Down, to use, in the first instance, safe car parks to put a roof over people's heads. It works in Brisbane, it can work here. That's my answer. It works in Brisbane, why can't we do it here?
Basil Zempilas, put your hands together for Basil. You're allotted 4 minutes of questions. Is up, Baz. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't race off because we've one act to go with our 7 candidates. But I would ask you, and on behalf of all of you in the room, to thank our 7 candidates for their candid approach to what is a very big subject. Bruce Reynolds, Basil Zempilas, Sandy Anghie, Tim Schwass, Mark Gibson, Brodie McCulloch and Bain. John Berger, WA Alliance of End Homelessness CEO, is joining us on stage. John, to introduce the pledge to the audience.
Thank you. We've heard lots of talk today, and as we've heard, we need action and we also need a commitment. And so what we're asking and challenging each of the candidates is to make a pledge to work with us. We know that we end homelessness when our first response is to place people in a home, permanent homes. It's as simple as that. However, we know that our current system doesn't work and we need to change that. Homelessness requires a whole of community response. We need the lived experience, we need services, we need government, we need local government. It's all our responsibility. A systems approach is the way that's been used nationally and internationally to end homelessness. We encourage you to look at the evidence, look what's working, follow the evidence, do those things that work and abandon those things that don't work. We need you to work collaboratively. You've all spoken about working together with the whole community because we all have a role to play. We seek your commitment and to pledge to work with us to achieve this outcome. So I'm going to call on each of you to come and sign a commitment to work with us to solve this problem together. Okay?
You want it in order? Yep. Sandy, so in the speaking order. What is also important, ladies and gentlemen, today is your stories, the questions, the answers, and see if they can deliver on those not so-called promises, but the answers they provided with you today, is that we are well represented by the media today. And it will be on the television networks tonight. And that is a huge boost for this issue, that it will be on free-to-air news. So for the visiting media networks and the radio stations and also the printer here today, this is a story that will be told on television tonight and it will be in the forefront of the viewers right around Western Australia. So on behalf of an unbiased media performer right now, thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Put your hands together for the media who rocked up today with their cameras. We appreciate it. So important. Well done. Thank you, Sandy. Bain, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your respect, your questions, your peace, and your knowledge of this very important issue. So on behalf of the team here, of course, of Shelter WA and also the WA Alliance to End Homelessness, thank you for attending here today. Once again, as the members come up and sign their pledge, would you put your hands together for our 7 candidates for the Lord Mayor position of the City of Perth as we try to end homelessness.